Hare Krishna, welcome everyone to our Chaitanya Caritamrta class. We'll begin with our prayers. Om Jnanatimrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauramani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Pashatyade Shatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, welcome everyone. We are continuing our discussion from Chaitanya Caritamrta. We are on Madhya Lila, chapter 22nd, the process of devotional service. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is instructing Sanatana Goswami on the Abhidheya process, the process of bhakti. And so far we have heard many wonderful concepts of the path of devotional service. Mahaprabhu began by glorifying the process of bhakti, how bhakti is superior to jnana, karma, yoga. He glorified how Krishna shows mercy to his devotees and how one can achieve devotion only by mercy of devotees. Then he gave classification of devotees according to Shraddha. Shraddhavan jana hoye bhaktir adhikari, uttama madhyama kanishta shraddha anusari. He gave various qualifications and characteristics of kanishta, madhyam and uttama adhikari devotee. And then he started glorifying the qualities of a Vaishnava, and he glorified the power of Vaishnava association. Very beautiful verses Mahaprabhu quoted from Srimad Bhagavatam. We have completed till verse number 98. We'll continue from verse number 99. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, now he describes the two kinds of devotees. Mahaprabhu says there are two kinds of devotees. One is Akinchana, other is Sharanagata. And there is a third type of devotee also. Sharanagatera Akinchanera Ekai Lakshan Tar Madhya Praveshya Atma Samarpan. So whether one is a Sharanagata Bhakta or a Akinchana Bhakta. Akinchan means fully satisfied, satiated, free from all material desires. And Sharanagata Bhakta means one who is fully surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord. Ekai Lakshan. They have one quality in common. Their qualities are almost same. But there is another type of devotee who is doing Atma Samarpan. Tar Madhya Praveshaye Atma Samarpan. But those who are fully surrendered to Krishna's lotus feet are qualified with another transcendental quality. What is that? They are Atma Samarpan. That means surrender without any reservation. Sharanagati and Atma Samarpan, Atma Samarpati devotees have another quality of surrender without any reservation. And then what are the qualities of this surrender? This is a very grave and important word in our devotional circle, surrender. What is this surrender? Krishna also speaks in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam braja. Surrender. This surrender, it is a very important word and very difficult word to practice. We speak about it many times, but to practice it is not so easy. To practice surrender, it is a lifetime of project. Mahaprabhu describes that these surrendered devotees, Atma Samarpana, they have 6 qualities. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam rakshishyati iti vishwaso gopatritve varnam statha atmanikshepa karpanye shadvinha sharanagati. So what are these 6 limbs of surrender? The 6 divisions of this surrender. It begins with anukulyasya sankalpa, accept whatever is favorable for the process of devotional service. Accept it. Pratikulyasya varjanam. Whatever is unfavorable, reject it. Rakshishyati iti vishwaso. The conviction that Krishna will give protection for sure. Goptritve varnam tatha. Goptritve means acceptance of Krishna as one's guardian or master. Atmanikshepa. Atmanikshep means full surrender and full self-surrender. Karpanye, humility. Shadvida, sharanagati. These are the 6 limbs of surrender. So to elaborate in this verse itself may take long time. Srila Prabhupada, he emphasizes few of these limbs in his purport. As we all know, anukulyasya sankalpa, what is favorable for the process of devotional service. Rupa Goswami writes in Upadeshamrit, Nectar of Instructions, Utsaha, Nishchaya, Dhairya, Tattat Karma Pravartanat, Sangatyaga, Stovrate, Shadbir Bhakti Prasiddhyati. These are the 6 limbs which are favorable for devotional service. To be enthusiastic, Utsaha, Nishchaya, confidence, Dhairya, patience, Tat Karma Pravartanat, following in the footsteps of previous acharyas, Sangatyagat, giving up association of non-devotees, Sato Vritteh, following the rules and regulations. These are the favorable things we have to accept. What is pratukulyasya? What is unfavorable for the practice of devotional service? The second verse of Nectar of Instruction describes that Pratyahar prayashascha prajalpa niyamagraha janasangascha laulyamcha shadvir bhakti vinashyati. Accumulating more than what is needed. Atyahara. Prayas, over-endeavoring, which is not conducive for the practice of devotional service. Prajalpa means talking all the mundane talks, gossip. Niyamagraha, doing something, following the rules and regulations just for the sake of following, or rejecting them because they are difficult to follow. Janasangasya, association of worldly minded people, that is unfavorable. Laulyam cha, the greed for material things. Shadvir bhakti vinashyati. Bhakti is destroyed by all these things. Then the third is Rakshishyati iti vishwaso. Prabhupada emphasizes, he gives purport to this. Rakshishyati iti vishwaso. What is Rakshishyati iti vishwaso? A devotee who is on this stage of Atma Samarpanas, surrender, he understands and he has this conviction that no one else can give him protection. He is firmly convinced about this. That is called as faith. The faith that nobody else can give protection. And Prabhupada writes, this kind of faith is different from the faith of an impersonalist who wants to merge in Brahman. An impersonalist may want to merge in Brahman and he has faith in that because he wants to stop the cycle of birth and death. But a devotee, he wants to remain in the devotional service, in the service of the Lord. So a devotee is firmly convinced that Krishna will protect me. Actually, no one else can give protection apart from Krishna because he is all capable. As the previous verse, one of the verse, it is described, he is Samartha. Krishna is Samartha and he is Kritagya also. That's why who will not take shelter of Krishna? As Mahaprabhu quoted this verse, Krishna's quality, Bhaktavatsala Kritagya Samartha Vadanya Hena Krishna Chhadi Pandit Nahi Bhaje Anya. Krishna is Bhaktavatsala, he is Kritagya, he is Samartha and he is Vadanya. So who will not surrender to Krishna? Why somebody will worship somebody else apart from Krishna? Rakshishyati iti vishwasa, because if Krishna neglects somebody, there is no hope for that person. As Prahlad Maharaj, he offers his prayer, Balasya neha sharanam pitarau narasimha नार्तस्य चागदमुदन्वति मज्जतो नौ तप्तस्य तत्प्रतिविधिर्य इहाञ्जश्रेष्ठस् तावद्विभो तनुभृतां तदुपेक्षितानाम्. He says, "Oh my Lord, if you neglect somebody, a child cannot be protected by the father. Doctor cannot protect and save the patient. A boat cannot take a person across the ocean. So if Lord accepts somebody as his own and he decides to give shelter, nobody can do anything for him. He's the only person who is capable of giving shelter. He is called a Sharanya. That is a conviction a devotee should have, and Krishna will surely protect his devotee. It comes in Govardhan lila when Indra is showering torrents of rains. Rains is falling in pillars, as pillars. All the Brajvasis, they are really suffering. They go to Krishna and say, "Oh Krishna, please protect us. Just see what Indra is doing. He's angry on us." And that time, Krishna, he speaks something to himself. Tasman masharanam goshtam mannatam mat parigraham gopaye swatma yogena soyam me vratahita. He says, these people, they have accepted me as their master. They have taken my shelter. Tasmat masharanam goshtam, they are my family. Mannatham mat parigraham, they are my relatives. I will protect them by my own potency. Atma Yogena, because so I am a vratahita. I have taken a vow to protect my devotees. So that is the conviction a devotee has. Rakshishyati iti vishwaso. A faith that Krishna will surely give protection. Actually, nobody else can give protection. Gopatritve varnam tatha. The devotee should accept Krishna as his guardian and master. Nobody else is my master. Nobody else is my protector. Because all the protectors and all the shelters of this world, they don't last. Shukdev Goswami tells Parikshit Maharaj, in this world, people take shelter of so many things. Deha patya kalatra adishu atma sainyashu asatsu api tesham pramatto nidhanam pashyannapi na pashyati. People take shelter of their husband, wife, children, family, home, relatives, wealth. They are themselves fallible shelters. They will not last long. How they can give shelter to others? A person who is absorbed in family life doesn't see that death is sure. Pashyannapi na pashyati. He sees that my friend is now gone. My wealth is also going. My body is deteriorating. But still, he neglects it. A devotee has full faith that Krishna is the only master. Krishna is my guardian. And therefore, a devotee should never ever think of taking shelter of a devata. Oh, for this problem, I will go to this devata. I have this problem with my astrological charts. And one of the devotees telling me to go to some Baba or astrologer, and he'll tell us some puja for Rahu, Shani, Ketu, and you do that, and then your bhakti will be okay because your problems will go. You can practice bhakti properly. We should never ever think of doing this. Gopatritve varnam. We should always think and understand that Krishna is our master. Sometimes devotees, they give this argument, well, we are not at that level. We are not that purified. So we have to do all these things. But at what level will we become purified? Will that day come when we'll think that now I have become purified? I don't need any other support. I'll depend on Krishna. Will that day come when this thought will come automatically? Because the principle of a devotee is he's always humble. But that humility should not make us become mixed in our devotional practices. That is not humility. That is insufficient understanding of philosophy. Anybody who has a who has developed this pure faith. We discussed in previous classes also. The pure faith means Krishna is my worshipable Lord. I will not go to anyone else. That is the faith. So a devotee, Prabhupada writes, a devotee should depend only on Krishna for everything. For all the material problems, for the spiritual problems, a devotee will never go to any other devata. Prabhupada writes, a devotee must be firmly convinced that in the three worlds there is no other protector for him than Krishna. And then he describes about Atma Nikshepa. What is this self-surrender? This is very important. Self-surrender looks a very big term, but Prabhupada gives a very beautiful definition of self-surrender. It is a very practical definition which any sadhaka can practice. He says, self-surrender means remembering that one's activities and desires are not independent. A devotee is completely dependent on Krishna and he acts and thinks as Krishna desires. So it is a very, very practical understanding of self-surrender. Self-surrender means one's activities and desires are not independent. I am not independent to do or think, the way I want. I am dependent on Krishna. I will do only whatever Krishna is telling me to do. Whatever Krishna wants me to do. Whatever devotees want me to do. That is the understanding of Atma Nikshepa. Prabhupada writes, when a living entity is fully surrendered, he is under the protection of Krishna. And Krishna gives him all intelligence by which he can advance in spiritual realization. So that is very important to understand. The more we surrender, the more we start applying these principles, the more Krishna gives intelligence to advance. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhiyogam tam yena mam upayanti te. Krishna gives intelligence by which we can come to him. The more we are satata yuktanam bhajatam, the more we are completely surrendered or focused. So complete surrender means what? Prabhupada writes, self-surrender means remembering that one's activities and desires are not independent. So we have to begin somewhere. We can't say, no, now I'm not ready for this self-surrender, so I will do some Devata worship also. We have to begin somewhere. It will not come automatically. We have to endeavor to self-surrender. Always thinking what Krishna wants me to do in this situation. What Srila Prabhupada, what Guru Maharaj wants me to do in this situation. That is surrender. Atmanikshep. Karpanya and devotee is always meek and humble. And then, Mahaprabhu continues. A fully surrendered devotee takes shelter of Krishna and takes shelter of the holy place where Krishna has performed his pastimes. And he prays to the Lord. My Lord, I am yours. And if somebody understands this, I am yours, he enjoys spiritual bliss. Tava asmi iti. So this jump from I am on my own and I will take care of all the things on my own. To the extent that now I am Krishna's. So I will take shelter of Krishna. So that is a huge jump. I am yours. So therefore, it is very, very important to have this understanding that if I am practicing Krishna consciousness, then for sure, I have to come to this understanding someday. I have to start practicing this someday. It will not happen automatically. We have to take that leap of faith. Otherwise, automatically it will not happen. We have to learn to surrender. And this word surrender looks very difficult because we are not able to understand. There are levels of surrender, but the basic level of surrender we have to develop. The basic level of surrender is, as Prabhupada writes here, self-surrender means remembering that one's activities and desires are not independent. This should be the meditation of a devotee. Whatever I am doing, I will do in such a way that Krishna is pleased. What Krishna wants me to do in this situation. How should I plan my life in such a way that Krishna will be pleased with me? I don't know how to approach Krishna. Please go to devotees, ask them, or pray to Krishna and Krishna will surely reveal. As Paramatma, he is always speaking. The problem is we are not able to hear the voice of Paramatma. Bhagavatam says, one can never express the gratitude sufficiently for whatever the Lord is doing for us. From inside, from outside, he is working very gravely, very seriously, he is working for us. Naivopayantyapachitiam kavayastavesha brahmayushapi kritamruddhamudam smarantah antarbahisthanubritam ashubham vidunvan acharya chaitya vapusha swagatim vyanakti. He is working as Acharya and Chaitya Vapusha, as spiritual master and as Paramatma. Mahaprabhu continues. शरण लैया कोरे कृष्ण आत्म समर्पण कृष्ण तारे कोरे तत्काले आत्मसम. Anyone who's when a devotee fully surrenders to Krishna's lotus feet, at that moment Krishna accepts him as one of his confidential associates. Tatkale means immediately. Krishna tare tatkale kore atmasam. And then the living entity who is subjected to the birth and death in this material world finally attains immortality, gives up his material activities, dedicates his life and activities in the service of the Lord, and becomes a liberated soul. He becomes fit to enjoy the spiritual bliss. And then after this, now Mahaprabhu starts describing very, very important fundamental principles of sadhana bhakti, whatever we are practicing. In this last section of 22nd chapter, Mahaprabhu will describe in detail about the various limbs of sadhana bhakti. What is sadhana bhakti? Ebe sadhana bhakti lakshan sun sanatan yaha haite paye Krishna prema mahadhan. O Sanatan, my dear Sanatan, now please hear the qualities of sadhana bhakti, the devotional service in practice. What are the regulative principles for execution of devotional service? By practice of this sadhana bhakti, yaha hoite paye Krishna prema mahadhan. By practice of sadhana bhakti, one can achieve the highest love, highest treasure of love God. Krishna prema mahadhan. What is this sadhana bhakti? Kriti sadhya bhavet sadhya bhava sa sadhana vidha nitya siddhasya bhavasya prakatyam riti sadhyata. Kriti sadhya bhavet. So whatever is executed when this transcendental devotional service for Krishna is executed by the senses, Kriti sadhya bhavet sadhya bhava, then the bhava will arise. By practice of this transcendental devotional service, that is sadhana bhakti, one can achieve the bhava bhakti. Nitya siddhasya. And what is this nitya siddha? What is this bhava? What is this sadhya bhava? That is already there in everyone's heart. Nitya siddhasya bhavasya prakatyam hridhi sadhyata. This sadhana bhakti is capable of giving us pure devotional service, which is already there in everyone's heart. It is eternally existing within everyone's heart. Srila Prabhupada writes, Rupa Goswami mentions this in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and all the living entities, they are minute part and parcels of the Lord, but because since time immemorial we have not served him, we have rebelled against him. Now we are in this material world. But that innate propensity to love God is there in everyone's heart. Just like when a man is sleeping, he can be awakened by the sound. All the other senses are dead or inactive when a person is sleeping. Only the ears are active. Similarly, this chance to awaken the love of God, which is there in everyone's heart, it is sleeping. When we hear this transcendental sound vibration of this Hare Krishna mantra, Nitya Siddhasya Bhavasya Prakatyam. By chanting the names of the Lord, what happens? Cheto Darpana Marjanam. The mind is purified, the senses are purified, and with those purified senses, the love of God gradually awakens. What are the characteristics of this sadhana bhakti? There are two characteristics of this sadhana bhakti: the Swarupa Lakshan and Tatastha Lakshan. Shravanadi Kriyatara Swarupa Lakshan, Tatastha Lakshane Upajaye Premadhan. Now, what is the primary quality and characteristic of this sadhana bhakti? Shravana Adi Kriya. The Navavidha Bhakti. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, all these are the primary characteristics of devotional, the sadhana bhakti. And the marginal characteristic is Upajaya Premam. Love of God arises in the heart. That is a secondary characteristic. That is not the main characteristic. The main characteristic of sadhana bhakti is the devotional principles. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atmanivedanam. Because when all these limbs of devotional service are practiced, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunai Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Kora Ye Uday. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema, the pure love of Krishna is already there in the heart of everyone. It is not to be acquired from somewhere external. Sadhya Kabunai, you cannot achieve it from outside. It is already there in everyone's heart. Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Karaye Uday. When we start hearing and chanting the names of the Lord, the heart is purified, Shuddha Chitte, and then this dormant love of God arises in the heart. It comes out. Just like some of us must have gone to our villages and the countryside where the hand pump is there. And if the hand pump is not used for many months, then it doesn't give water. So what we have to do? We have to put water from above. Although the entire huge reservoir of water is there, but still the water doesn't come out because there is a air column in between. We have to put water from above, and when this water makes connection with the water which is there in the underground, the huge reservoir of water is there, then the hand pump starts working, and then the water which is there in the earth starts coming out. Similarly, the Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema is there in everyone's heart. What we have to do? We have to put the water of Shravana Kirtana Jal. And when this Shravana Kirtan Jal goes through the ears and enters our heart, makes that connection, then that Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema comes out. So that is the process. Eita sadhana bhakti duita prakar, eka vaidhi bhakti raga nuga bhaktiyar. And this sadhana bhakti is of two types. One is Vaidhi sadhana bhakti and other is Raganuga sadhana bhakti. What is this Vaidhi sadhana bhakti? In Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, there is no spontaneous attachment for practice of the limbs of devotional service. One is not spontaneously attracted for towards hearing, chanting, and all the other Navvidha bhakti. Then why does he do that? Because he has heard from the teachers and the devotees, and he has read in scriptures. He has faith in the scriptures and the teachers, the devotees. So because he has read and he has heard, although there is no spontaneous attachment, but still he does it under the guidance. He follows the regulative principles given in scriptures. That is Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport. In the beginning, the devotee hears from spiritual master, then starts following the various limbs of bhakti, chanting, hearing, then deity worship, and all this gradually purifies this devotee, and then he develops this spontaneous devotional service. In the beginning, it is not spontaneous, it is Vaidhi. I am doing it because I am told by the teachers, by my superior devotees, by acharyas, by gurus, and I have read in scriptures also, so I'll do it. But most important thing is, a devotee should never execute all these devotional principles for material gain. Then the bhakti becomes mixed. The primary intention for practicing devotional service should not be material things. I don't want material things, but because of my conditionings, I am pushed by my mind to get material things. But that is not my primary intention to practice devotional service. A devotee is never interested in anything material. There is no material motive. Ahetuki, apratihata. The devotional service should never be performed for material motives. It is ahetuki bhakti. Prabhupada gives two examples, wonderful examples Prabhupada gives. How this Vaidhi sadhana bhakti will gradually come to Raganuga sadhana bhakti. A child is forced to go to school. He doesn't like to go to school. He doesn't like to study, but he is forced by the parents. You have to go, you have to teach, you have to learn. But gradually, when he starts reading it, he gets a little taste for the subject and he studies it more and more. Automatically, he starts participating. Automatically, he starts taking interest. He becomes a scholar. Although in the beginning, it was forced on him, but in due course of time, it became spontaneous for him. He started liking studying. Similarly, in the Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, the principles may be forced upon the practitioner. He may not like to chant, he may not like to study, he may not like to hear. But I have heard from my senior devotees, I have read in scriptures, so I'll do it. But the more one practices, the more affection, absorption, and intensity develops in this Vaidhi sadhana bhakta. His practice or her practice becomes raganuga. There is no change of external activities. It is not that a Vaidhi sadhana bhakta performs some different types of activities, a Raganuga sadhana bhakta performs different types of rituals. No. The same rituals, the same limbs of devotional service, when performed with intensity, absorption, and affection, that becomes a Raganuga. And in fact, Srila Prabhupada has very, very nicely incorporated all the various limbs which are actually Raganuga. If somebody is making garland for the Lord with affection, that, oh, Lord will wear it, he'll look so beautiful. And he's doing it consistently, or this one devotee is doing it consistently. That is Raganuga. Intensity, absorption, and affection. Externals may remain the same, but that devotee is completely absorbed in pleasing the Lord. So Prabhupada writes, The dormant love is there in everyone's heart. It just has to be awakened. Another example Prabhupada gives of a person who is learning typing. In the beginning, he may have to struggle, he may look for the keys and keep on pressing the buttons. But the more one practices, he or she becomes expert and he can even type without even looking at the keyboard. That is Raganuga. In the beginning, he'll see all the keys, and then he will type. But the more one becomes expert, it is natural for him. So this spontaneous devotional service is not artificially performed. The same things when performed with intensity, absorption, and affection. That becomes Raganuga. Mahaprabhu quotes a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. Tasmad Bharat Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari Shrotavyah Kirtitavyascha Smartavyascha Ichchata Bhayam. Shukdev Goswami is telling Parikshit Maharaj, O king, O descendant of Bharata dynasty, Bharata, Bhagavan, Ishvaro Tasmad Bharat Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari. That Supreme Lord who is situated in everyone's heart as Paramatma, who is Bhagavan also, who is a supreme controller, who is Ishvara, who is Hari, who removes the miseries of everyone. The more one hears Shrotavyaha, Kirtitavyaha, one who speaks about the Lord, Smartavyaha, one who remembers the Lord, naturally what happens? Abhaya. If you want to become fearless, please chant, hear, and remember the Lord. That is the practice of sadhana bhakti. Of course, Parikshit Maharaj is liberated soul. But when such instructions are given, they are for the sadhakas. Then Mahaprabhu starts describing about Varnashram. The Varnashram is meant to ultimately connect to the Lord. From the mouth of the universal form, the Brahmanas come. From the hands, Kshatriyas come. From the belly, Vaishyas come. From the legs, Shudras they come. They form the complete society. What is the purpose of this Varnashram? Ya esham purusham shakshat atma prabhavam ishwaram na bhajante vajananti sthanat bhrashtat patatyadha. Ya esham purusham shakshat, the supreme personality of Godhead who is directly prabhavam ishwaram, who is the source of everyone, who is Ishvara, the supreme controller. If one just maintains the varna and ashrama, but na bhajanti, if somebody does not worship Krishna, avajananti, it does not even know who is the Supreme Lord, what happens? Sthanad bhrashtad patanti adhaha, patatyadhaha. He falls down. If somebody does not worship Krishna and he is doing his varnashram duties, what's the use? Varnashram acharvata purushena parapuman Vishnu aradhyate pantha nanyat tattosha karanam. The purpose of all the varnashram system is to please the Lord, is to serve the Lord, is to practice devotional service. If that is not followed, then what is the use? Because the ultimate goal of all the rules and regulations mentioned in scriptures is to always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. Smartavya satatam Vishnu Vishmartavyo na chatuchit sarve vidhi nishedhasyur etayor kinkaraha. This verse from Padma Puran mentions that always remember Krishna, smartavya satatam, vismartavyo na chatuchit, never forget him. All the vidhi and nished, all the rules and regulations of the scriptures are meant to be subservient to these two principles. Sarve vidhi nishedhasyu Etayoreva kinkara. They are the servants of this one these two principles, all the rules and regulations. Prabhupada writes, one can remember the Lord always. When one can remember the Lord always? How to remember the Lord always? When one chants the Hare Krishna mantra. That's the easiest way to remember the Lord always. One may have so many duties towards the spiritual master, but Prabhupada writes, he must first abide by the spiritual master's order to chant a certain number of rounds, that is 16 at least. That is the order of spiritual master. All the other rules and regulations, they are subservient to this one principle, because when we chant, that is the easiest way to remember Krishna. Prabhupada writes very important line. If one serves but does not worship Krishna or does not chant, then it is not a good thing. In fact, in one place, Prabhupada writes, he's having a conversation. He says, if somebody is doing devotion, if somebody is doing lots of services and he's not chanting, his service becomes a pious activity. It's not a devotional activity because he's not understanding the intention and he doesn't have that consciousness why he's serving. So it is very, very important to chant properly. Some devotees, they say, Prabhuji, chanting is difficult. I can do a lot of services, but chanting is difficult. In due course of time, if somebody is not chanting and just does services, the service will also stop in due course of time. It is natural. We have seen many, many stories like this. Somebody who was doing such wonderful services, but he was not chanting or she was not chanting, and then in some time that devotee left. Whatever we are doing in Krishna consciousness, it is to give us an impetus to remember Krishna. If we are not remembering Krishna, doing our services, then it is Shrama eva hi kevalam. It will give very little benefit. As somebody told Swayam Bhagwan Keshav Maharaj was telling that. One devotee, senior devotee, was talking to him and he said, it is nice that you are absorbed in your services, but do you know that it is also service to be absorbed? So we should be absorbed in serving Krishna and we should be absorbed in remembering Krishna. Otherwise, if we are not careful of why we are serving, if we are not remembering the purpose of our services may be done, but we will not get the satisfaction, will not be fulfilled. If we are very conscious and we are aware of why we are doing our services. I'm doing my services to please Krishna, please Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, please Srila Prabhupada. Then that service satisfies the soul. Otherwise, it is the Rajogun which drives us. We are used to working in the outside world. We are working in the devotional circles, devotional things we are doing. It is all about our consciousness. If we are not conscious of why we are doing what we are doing, we'll not get the results, will not advance in spiritual practices. We may keep on running around whole day. Of course, in the beginning years of our Krishna consciousness, it is better to run around because the Rajogun has to be channelized. A new devotee has to run around, should run around, should do hard physical work also, seva also. Because that's the way the passion is purified. But in due course of time, we should understand the purpose of our services. Then we will go ahead. Prabhupada writes, of all the regulative principles, the spiritual master's order to chant at least 16 rounds is the most essential. The most essential is chant at least 16 rounds. After describing this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu he says, now I shall describe some of the various limbs of sadhana bhakti. There are many, many limbs of sadhana bhakti. I shall speak briefly about some of them. And then he starts mentioning the 64 limbs, some of the 64 limbs of devotional service, which Rupa Goswami mentions in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Guru Pada Shraya Diksha Gurura Sevan Sadharma Siksha Priksha Sadhu Marganugamanam. It begins with Guru Pad Ashraya, accepting a bona fide spiritual master. Guru Pad Ashraya. That's the first thing. Guru Pada Shraya Diksha. And then one must accept initiation. Gurura Sevan, then one should serve the spiritual master. Sadharma Pricha, Sadharma Siksha and Pricha. One must receive instructions from the spiritual master, Sadharma Siksha, and Pricha. One should also inquire from the spiritual master. And the fifth limb is Sadhu Marganugamanam. One must follow in the footsteps of previous acharyas, all the great saintly devotees. Krishne Pritye Bhogatyaga, Krishne Tirthavas, Yavan Nirvaha Pratigraha Ekadashi Upavas. Krishne Pritye Bhogatyag. One should be prepared to give up anything which is dear to him or her for the pleasure of Krishna. Krishne Pritye Bhogatyag. And one should be eager to go to holy places. Krishne Tirthevas. Gaurama Reshabastane Korila Brahman Range Seshabastane Heribo Ami Pranay Bhakata Sange. One should be eager to go to the places where Mahaprabhu has gone, where Krishna has performed the pastimes. And Yavan Nirvaha Pratigraha, whatever is essential as a livelihood, one should work for that. And one should follow Ekadashi Vrata. And then Mahaprabhu keeps on quoting many, many limbs. Worshipping the trees, the sacred trees like banyan, and people worshipping cows, brahmanas, devotees of the Lord. And one should give up association of non-devotees, asatsangatyaga. And one should be very, very careful not to accept many, many disciples. And he says one should stay away from seva aparadha and nama aparadha. One should not be eager to study so many books just for the sake of giving reference or quoting them to be famous as a scholar devotee. Prabhupada writes, according to Srila Jiva Goswami, a preacher may accept many disciples to expand the cult of Krishna consciousness, but that is risky. Because if somebody is not powerful enough, when a guru accepts a disciple, he takes the responsibility of the disciple. And he accepts the sinful reactions of the disciple. And if somebody is not powerful enough, then he'll suffer the consequences. So therefore, generally one is forbidden to accept many disciples. Prabhupada told sometimes that my only fault is I've accepted many disciples. But what can I do? I had to do it to spread the cult of Krishna consciousness. And one should not read so many books just to pose oneself as a great scholar or just to quote from many scriptures. One should study thoroughly any book. One should not just study some of the sections of the book, get some verses so that we can quote. Prabhupada writes, in our Krishna consciousness, we have therefore limited our study of Vedic literatures to Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Caitanya Caritāmrta, and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. These 4 books are sufficient to become a preacher and to develop a strong foundation of Krishna conscious philosophy. So if somebody studies a particular book, he should study it thoroughly. not just reading part of it or section of it just to quote. A devotee should be equipoised in a gain or loss. One should never be overwhelmed by lamentation, shoka, adi, vashana, haiba. One should not be overwhelmed. One should not worship devatas. One should not disrespect devatas. One should not criticize other scriptures. One should not study other scriptures. One should not hear the blasphemy of Vishnu or the devotees of the Lord. One should avoid reading all the other mundane literatures. Gramya varta na shuniba. One should not speak all the mundane subject matters. One should not read the books which are describing the mundane affairs of love between man and women. One should not give agitation and trouble to any other living entity by the body, mind, and words. So these are the first 20 items. The first 10 are the do's and next 10 are the don'ts. First 10 were the direct things, direct action. The second are indirect action. And then Mahaprabhu will continue to describe the other limbs. So today we'll stop here. We'll continue next time. I have to leave for some other program. Hare Krishna. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.